Welcome and be inspired with Dominic. Let's dive right in. Today I'm going to show you how to make this, a beholder Eyestalk. Just in case you don't know what a beholder is, it's an iconic monster from Dungeons and Dragons, and that would make a great trophy for your players or maybe as a present for your DM if you slew his. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Print out the template from the link in the description. The main Eyestalk part is longer than a single page and thus needs to be glued together. You do not need to cut it out completely at this point, just make sure the flapless side of the connection is clean cut. I use a glue stick here, but other methods of sticking paper together should work as well. Make sure to align both pieces properly and apply pressure to the flap. Give the glue some time, then you can cut out the template along the outer line. Where you can make this from a number of cloths, I prefer felt. Since I need two pieces, I use a larger one folded in half. Pins are a great way to keep the template from shifting. While you could sew this by hand, I'm partial to this power tool. Make sure the felt is flush with the bottom of the template, then sew along the inner line all the way around. The easiest way to keep the threads from doing anything untoward is to add a couple of overhead knots at both ends of the seam. Once that is sealed, I cut out the felt along the outside of the template and remove the pins. The template has outlived its usefulness, so I tear it away. I do leave the rest where it is because it would be too much of a hassle to pick that away too. I can get away with that because I am now inverting the shape. Push in the closed end and use a stick to push the tip all the way through. Wait, let's back up a bit. No, not like that. Just push the round end back in on itself to make a cavity for the eye. For which I will be using plastic spheres like this. And since they do not look very eye-like, I need to paint them first. I start with the pupil. Using two strips of painter's tape, I try to make two halves that meet in a way that this hanging bit in the end aligns as well. Once they fit, I fill that part with black paint. Once the paint is dry, I remove the painter's tape. For the iris, I use a round object as a template to place the eye into, align the pupil and mark the extent of the iris on the outside with a felt-tipped marker. To get some semblance of a good-looking iris, I start layering two metallic colors using toothpicks. I let each layer dry so that once I apply the next one, there will be no smears, but layer upon layer of tiny fibers. Once the metal bits are almost covering the area, I paint over them using a matching color. The rest of the eyeball is supposed to be white except for some veins. And to do that, I need to do the veins before the white, again with a toothpick. Then I accidentally used a mother of pearl effect paint instead of plain white, but I will mark that down as intentional. Once the proper white is on, I can remove the iris circle from the outside using rubbing alcohol, as well as a little color from where the two halves meet so that they go together nicely. At this point I can still change the position of the eyeball by making the cavity more or less deep. To keep it from flopping about later, I use color matched thread to make a few stitches around the circumference of the cavity to keep it in place. To glue the eyeball in position, I use CA glue, applied for tradition's sake with kind of a toothpick. The Eyestalk also needs to be stuffed, and what better material to use than the cut-offs from before? Well, cotton, but I'm still going with the cut-offs. Cutting them into smaller pieces really helps here. And if you got the really expensive felt, it will actually fill itself. Sadly, I got the reasonably priced stuff, so I have to stuff it myself. For the bottom end, I roll up a strip or strips of felt roughly 1 inch wide, to make a spiral thick enough to fit the opening. The color I chose is what I would call flesh tone. To make it a little easier to get this spiral in place, invert the bottom inch of the Eyestalk, put the spiral in, and then push the Eyestalk back over. Using needle, thread and pliers, I managed to put some threads through the whole thing several times before tying it off, just to keep it in place. I hope you enjoyed making this, even though it doesn't contain any wood. You could probably stuff it with sawdust, but I wouldn't recommend that. I just want to show you, well, the prototypes that I made for this. This one is the same pattern as the final one, but here I tried to attach the ball using a tether. The idea was that you could then pivot the eye, but in the at a length like this, you're bound to get some, well, additional play in the cord, which I think the one I used isn't actually prone to that, but it still gets it, and that doesn't really look that neat, so yeah, I skipped that and decided to glue it in. It's an option though. The next one, or the previous one, was this one where the ball actually fits, but this was way too thin and it was a pain to invert, so yeah, that's that. And on the subject of knowing your measurements is only half getting there, I made this using the circumference of this ball twice. That is, I messed up, but I thought about adding some teeth, so that could probably chew, I don't know. I just wanted to show you how I got there. So if you're still watching, that probably means you're interested in my stuff. Dungeons and Dragons, or role-playing in general, is a big hobby of mine, and this came up in a session where I threw a beholder at my party, which includes my wife, and she, well, after the battle decided to go ahead and chop off one of those Eyestalks to get a trophy. And just in case you know D&D, this is now not just a trophy for her, but a wand of friends, which is a mixed blessing at best. Make these. There are links down in the description where you can get the pattern, and there's also an article on another homepage of mine, Walking Paper Cut, about how to use it in your game. And there's a third one, Jabato's Kitchen, where I show you a recipe to pretend to cook these. So check that out. If you enjoy what you see and liked what I did, please share it. It helps me out a lot to spread the word, basically. If you didn't enjoy it, I'd appreciate if you didn't tell anyone, or tell other people to make up their mind. Anyway, I realize it's a change from my usual pace, but looking back, I never really had that good of a pace, so I hope you're fine with that. Thanks for watching, and as always, remember to be inspired. Oh, you actually know me from way back before I had a break. Took a break, didn't have a break, at least not down, but I'm rambling again.